I street viewed my childhood home and saw something creepy. Reddit user Fallen Fawn writes about the time she saw something really creepy on Google Street View. To this day, she is left feeling uneasy whenever she remembers what she saw. One day, Fallen Fawn was using Google Street View to look at the place she used to live at, as she was feeling nostalgic. Because of this, she thought it'd be best to quell her longing of the past by taking a virtual tour of the house she used to live in as a kid. Although she wouldn't be able to see the inside of her home, she would still be able to see the outside. For her, this was enough, for just seeing the front of the house would elicit happy memories of her childhood. She starts off by visiting her old elementary school. Amazed by how much the school has changed, she goes on to visit the cul-de-sac where she used to play at to see if things have changed there too. It was still pretty much the same, which was unlike her home, a place she can no longer recognize. After having left the cul-de-sac, she heads on over to her old home and sees that almost the entire house has been remodeled. Now, although she was expecting good memories to conjure up, she was rather hit by a wave of bad memories instead. She goes on to talk about these memories, one of which involved her father, who was both psychologically and physically abusive. She then goes on to talk about other incidents, most of which were very traumatizing. But the most traumatizing event she recalls was the night she saw a man standing by her bedroom door. She was sleeping when out of nowhere, upon waking up, she sees the silhouette of a man standing by her doorway. She ran screaming to her parents' bedroom to tell them what she saw. However, after having checked the entire house and returning to her room, he was nowhere to be found. He just disappeared. And, most chilling of all, she adds that she once found a door to a hidden crawl space that led to nowhere. After recounting these memories, she then notices something weird about this image. She zooms in on one of the windows and sees something that scared the living daylights out of her. She saw what appeared to be a man who had the same stature and shape as the person who was standing by her doorway. He was looking outside the window with a gaze so haunting that it would give anyone nightmares upon seeing it. The Reddit user then ends the story here, asking whether or not she should go back and confront this person. Perhaps he was hiding in that crawl space, living there, and coming out at night to stalk the Reddit user during her sleep. Who knows? Perhaps it would be best to not visit the place, as she would be confronting a stranger who may be very dangerous. Doubtless, the Reddit user can't shake the thought of this memory, as this image continues to remind her of that terrifying night. The fog. Reddit user Strange Lob talks about the scariest thing that ever happened to him after taking directions from Google Maps. He starts off by talking about how he and his friend wanted to find a spot away from his family to smoke. He goes on Google Maps and finds a place near the boondocks, a place that was far from home. After deciding on this location, both friends start to head on over as Google Maps provided directions on how to get there. Their journey took some time, as their destination was located far from the city. As they approached their destination, they were told to make a turn, then another turn, until they finally arrived. The place they arrived at was behind a gas station. There was nothing but tumbleweeds and a massive crop, barren of anything but dirt, that surrounded the place. It was perfect. They were sure that no one would catch them, for not a single soul was in sight. Or so they thought. After having smoked, they noticed that they were now surrounded by a dense fog. They couldn't see a thing, which was perfect, as it set the mood for the occasion. But, little did they know that they would encounter something very chilling within this fog. At this point, Google Maps lost connection, and the fog was incredibly thick that they couldn't see past it. They decided to leave once the fog subsided, but as they waited, they heard something in the distance. They couldn't hear it clearly the first time, but when they heard it again, they knew they had to leave, for what they heard gave them chills. In the distance, they heard what sounded like a chainsaw. And what put them on edge was the fact that the sound was getting louder and louder, meaning that whoever was wielding this chainsaw was getting closer to the car. They began to panic and were ready to dial for help, but just when they were about to make that call, the sound of the chainsaw stopped. For a moment, they heard the buzzing of a saw, but then seconds later, complete silence. And just when they thought it was over, they heard the noise again. They resumed panicking, but stopped after the sound of the saw cut off once more. Whoever was out there knew exactly what they were doing. They were terrorizing these two friends, who were most likely regretting the fact that they chose a location in the middle of nowhere. Once the fog was gone and the connection to Google Maps was restored, they started their engine and drove away immediately. To this day, they don't know if they were just hallucinating or if there was actually someone with a chainsaw purposely scaring them to death. Who knows? What matters though is that both are alive and made it out safely. Dead body. Google Maps is notorious for capturing some of the creepiest images you can find online. But perhaps the most unsettling image Google has captured has to be the corpse of a 10-year-old boy. One day, Jose Barrera was using Google Maps when, out of nowhere, he comes across what appeared to be an image of a dead kid. That kid, as it turned out, was his son. Although he wasn't shocked because he was dead, since he died years ago, he was rather shocked by the fact that Google has an image of his dead son that anyone can see. Upon seeing this image, Mr. Barrera was brought to tears, as it brought back the memory of when he was told about his son's death. He was told that his son was shot multiple times, and that the killer has yet to be found. The suspect remains at large, which is something Mr. Barrera has come to terms with. However, he is not fine with Google having this image on their database. Google responded, saying that they would have this image removed as soon as possible. As of today, that image no longer exists on Google Maps. Had Mr. Barrera not stumbled upon this image and identified the body as the corpse of his 10-year-old son, I'm sure there would have been plenty of creepypastas based on this image. The old guy. Sometimes we're given directions that lead us to the wrong place. This might have been due to the fact that we input the wrong address onto the GPS, or simply because we weren't paying attention to the given directions. However, Redditor RoseBlack18 didn't arrive at the wrong location for either reason. She arrived at where she needed to be, yet her destination looked nothing like the place she had in mind. She was tricked, for she was given directions that didn't lead to a salon, but to a stranger's house. RoseBlack18 was looking for a job when, one day, she found a posting on Craigslist that she felt was perfect for her. The ad was from a tanning salon that was looking to hire both high school and college girls. Knowing that she would qualify, as she was a college student herself, she submitted her application by email, and, within minutes, she received an email back from the salon. She was told that she was hired, and asked if she could drop by for an interview. Excited by the fact that she was just hired, she agreed to meet the owner of the salon that same afternoon. Before heading over, she inputs the address of the place onto Google Maps and then leaves. However, upon arriving at the area where the salon is located, she begins to notice something odd. The town she was in appeared abandoned and had nothing but dilapidated houses on almost every corner. She was then told to make a turn in 400 feet, as her destination was located just to the right. But she knew that she wouldn't be arriving at a salon. Rather, she would be arriving at a house. Soon after pulling up, she was told that she had reached her destination. Her stomach dropped. Something didn't seem right. She was parked outside of a house that was completely destroyed. There was no way that someone lived there, she thought to herself. However, to her surprise, someone actually lived there, as an old man stepped out of it and into the front porch. She was shocked to see that someone was actually living in such a dilapidated house. But, most shocking of all, was when the old man motioned her to come inside. It's as though he was expecting her. Perhaps he was, as he could have been the so-called salon store owner who she sent her resume to. He could have been posing as such in the hopes of luring innocent high school and college girls. She then drove away, driving as fast as possible, making sure that the old man didn't get to his car and start following her. Without a doubt, it would have been a good idea if she first street viewed the place before heading over. Murder on Google Maps. Although tragic, the following story is quite a mystery. A former employee of Cisco, by the name of Bradley Cooper, has been convicted of having done something terrible after officials found a certain file on his computer. One morning, Cooper's wife decides to go out for a run. Then, that same day, she never came back. The following day, police officials find a body that turns out to be the wife of Mr. Cooper. She was strangled to death by an unknown suspect. However, after investigators got a hold of Cooper's laptop, they found out who that suspect was. It was Mr. Cooper. They were certain it was him. After gaining access to the data on his computer, investigators found an image from Google Maps that showed the exact location of where the body was found. That image was saved on his computer the day before she was killed. However, Mr. Cooper's lawyer objected and argued that someone planted that image on his computer to set him up. And on top of that, Cooper had people who were ready to testify on his behalf. But the court didn't allow any of them to do so, as they weren't previously named as witnesses. As of today, Mr. Cooper remains in jail. But just recently, the court has ordered a new trial for Mr. Cooper to prove his innocence. Although we don't know whether or not Mr. Cooper committed the crime, we do know that whoever did must have had something against Mrs. Cooper. Or perhaps it was him, considering that both Mr. and Mrs. Cooper were having marital problems. But the fact that Mr. Cooper has people who can testify on his behalf and evidence to prove his innocence makes this mind-boggling. Had it not been for that image from Google Maps, Mr. Cooper wouldn't be in this situation. Hopefully this case gets resolved soon. I'm gonna shoot you. Reddit user Girling Boyer talks about the scariest encounter he ever experienced after taking a wrong turn. Both Girling Boyer and his girlfriend were on a road trip, traveling across the country with Google Maps serving as their GPS. One day, Google Maps finds a shortcut and takes the couple off the main road and onto a trail that led to an open gate. Although suspicious of the shortcut, Girling Boyer felt that it'd be okay to continue driving past the gate as it was open. However, little did he know that upon entering, he would come close to risking his own life, including his girlfriend's. As he entered, he looked at his rearview mirror and saw a horde of dogs running towards his car. Upon seeing this, he then started driving really fast, trying to get away from the dogs that were getting closer to them. But he then brought the car to a halt as he was approaching a creek. They were now at a dead end, and the dogs have now caught up to them. He began to back up and then drove back towards the entrance. However, his stomach sank when he saw in the distance what appeared to be an old lady with a shotgun. She was yelling out, but he couldn't hear a word she was saying, for she was yelling from a distance. But as she got closer, he then heard what she has been saying, that she was going to shoot them if they didn't get off her property. He then started driving really fast, but had to slow down as he saw that the gate was now closed. Both him and his girlfriend were now panicking, fearing the old lady who was approaching them closer and closer with every passing second. And just when they thought that things couldn't get any worse, the horde of dogs returned. They were now running, faster than ever. But as their car approached the gate, it started to open on its own. As it turns out, the gate opens automatically whenever vehicles approach it. Soon after the gate was open, they hightailed their way out of there, driving away as fast as possible. Both made it out safely, but who knows what could have happened had the old lady caught up to them. After this incident, they filed a report to Google, but have yet to hear back from them. Thanks for watching. Let me know in the comments below if you've ever had any creepy experiences with Google Maps. That said, I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next one.